the burnout extension, normally you would usually the burnout extension cards are available, but in some cases, in some runs you don't get burnout extension cards, so that can be a problem. But I think we can put it at okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's bad.
Behind the harvest.
Right. Yeah,
now,
I think I agree with that.
This next one's kind of weird. So this Dark Calling, I would say it's great, but only one level of it. like I don't think the actual scaling is great. I mean, it can be good, but I think having one level of that with Harvest is really my preferred way to use this champion.
Yeah, I'd agree with one level of it and Harvest being the best. I still think I can make 3 into Dark Calling be fine. This might be my own hubris with just how it's done lately. I almost want to rank it win game by itself.
Oh my gosh.
I would. The only reason I disagree is you can't win it with dregs. You have to have something that scales legitimately well, or it can't win. So that's why I'd say I think great makes sense. I can't put it on win game by itself exactly for that reason. You have to have something that benefits from the reform.
True. Although I will say, I think I'd be interested to try this out. I know Ring 1, you can beat it just with dregs. But I wonder, I feel like Ring 1 through 3, you can almost beat it just with dregs. But agreed, past those rings, dregs become a little bit worse, obviously. I just find so often you're finding like a draft or a Paraffin Enforcer, even just some tombs. To me, what it does is it opens up the entire melting game plan to you. Whereas like if I go Harvest, and I don't have reform or whatnot, draft can be tough to take. One of the best infusions and best just sort of non-banner units in the game goes from iffy, but with Dark Calling, it's like I can just take it confidently.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I think the like taking it one rank or because the Rector Flicker does like he has the drafts. The dregs instead of like Little Fade, which has the reforms, which is so much better. Like taking the Dark Calling here, it gives you that reform tool to bring back units, and that's like one of the key mechanics of Melting Remnant, and it unlocks that just with one rank, so it's really good.
It's tough to figure, like Dark Calling, it took me from this almost a year to even get proficient with it. Like there's so much nuance to how to play it. It's like every fight you might make a different justification for like the floor you want to play it on. You also have to pay attention to like burnout timers and stuff. So it's like, it's not an easy one to play. Which is why for the longest time this game, I just never played it. I just thought it was bad. But yeah, I think great makes sense.
Yeah,
I mean, it's weird that I rank it at great, but not 3 levels of it. Like I think 3 levels of it is lower. Like, but the first level makes it great.
Yeah.
So I think I've talked about this is like completely off topic, but if I were to rework a little bit Melting Remnant, this has been my pet theory. I think that drag being the starter card is the mistake. I think we've talked about this before. My thought would be, if I were to modify things, because I think drag actually would be pretty good with Little Fade. Just like draft is pretty good with Little Fade. And what I would do is I would keep drag stats the same, but have a very similar thing like the bog flies. Make it a common unit so that it comes up in drafts like dregs do, or an uncommon unit, I guess, in that case. and I would have it damage scale with its number of burnout. And then I would replace drag with Wicklash, half damage, 1 burnout as a starter card.
So +5 damage.
Plus 5 damage, plus 1 burnout.
Like a root seeds. I like that.
Or maybe +2 burnout. I don't know.
But that way, I think you have a card that works like really, really well with Burn Bright, and that's the biggest problem for me. Like Burn Bright, like we have it in okay. I would almost move it to bad, because if you don't have any extension, you cannot take it.
Or
it's untakeable.
You can take it with Reform.
So yeah, Reform, but like if you start with like without a Reform, and like let's say you start with a Draft, you can't take it. It's untakeable. You will lose ring 1.
Yeah. It's weird to have a path that literally can't take. Like
you could technically not play it the first turn and cycle back into it, but at that point it's like, why? Well, you might as well just go Harvest or Dark Calling.
But at Covenant 25, I think you have to be lucky to cycle back into it. You can't rely on actually it's all 100%.
And then ring 2, those purifiers. Ugh.
Yeah, ring 2, you're screwed.
So what's fascinating about the coding of the game is that the champion has intrinsic, which means it does not have priority, which means that on recycle, it is not guaranteed to show up like a priority unit would.
Right. Though, I guess I could argue there, though, that, the drag, you could play every drag out the first cycle through, and then at that point, your deck should only be, like 12 cards or something. So you'd have to low roll to not find it again, but it is possible, definitely.
But one of the bosses has plates. So
I guess I'm more just talking about ring 1. Like ring 2, I agree. You're like, you can, if you don't find Reform.
Ring 1, one of the bosses has a plate.
Oh, right. Yep, that's true. True. That does make the low roll more possible.
So you're trying 4 cards, like, and then ring 2, 3 cards, like. It's basically like Nate said, like not literally untakeable, but just really, really bad.
Yeah. Now, granted, it's unlikely that you won't find Burnout Extension or Reform in your ring 1 rewards. There's half of the that makes up half of the common tier.
Right, I gotta go. I'll be right back.
Oh, all right. But it's still possible not to get anything offered. It happens somewhat often, but we're probably just splitting hairs at this point. I think we all kind of don't like Burnout Rector.
I think we all agree.
I was making the case for why I think it would be in bad, and why I think it's
I could actually agree with bad, because to me it's like, why take it? Maybe even trash.
I don't think it's trash tier, because as I said, like, you can make it work.
Yeah.
And you can, it's another unit that with Umbra, you can do Ember Drain package with it.
Right.
It's not great, because then it dies and you lose all of it. But if you have a way to keep it, it's fine. But I would take Accumulator or Dark Calling over it anytime.
Yeah, same. It is funny, though, that I will say when I take Blank Pages, it's probably one of my most excited ones to see.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Rank 3 by itself for 3 turns, you don't have to worry about it. It's fine.
Right.
But when has Blank Pages ever won you a game? Ever.
It's lost me the game. It's definitely lost me the game. That's I think it did win me one once.
I mean, you can
That's about it.
You can get the endless little fade, and then you can just keep on playing him.
That's true. If you got Firelight, it even wouldn't be terrible, except for if you don't have any extension, then it's bad. But anyway,
Endless Fate is like a catch-22 for me when I find it in Blank Pages, because on the one hand, it's a good unit, but on the other hand, it's, depending on what my setup is, it's actually could hurt me, in that it does cost you a draw. Right.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Blank Page. I almost always regret taking Blank Pages, even though it's like a fun one, right?
Yeah,
it is very fun.
Yeah.
It's like if I were
So
just trying to win, I probably would never take it.
finally,
Finally,
terms of-
new clan.
Yeah, the only
Lion Chief.
champ that I probably prefer the non-exiled variant to the exiled variant.
Yes, which is surprising because the overwhelming consensus at the beginning was Spine Chief was pretty bad and
Yep.
Echo Right was so good. And I
Right.
think having done it, I think Spine Chief is really, really strong.
Yep. Definitely
Let's-
agree.
Let's start with, what's the first one?
Sorry, I don't know myself. I need to take a look at my
It's,
files. The first one is here. It's the unhit one that gives you
Oh, Infector.
Infector. I don't like Infector. Some people like really go crazy for it. I've seen this a
Yeah.
lot. Like Hart loves it. Maybe I'm speaking for him. I remember him taking it in
Yeah.
the tournament.
I'm back. Sorry.
We're
what are
on,
we talking
we're on to Infector. I was
Infector.
making the case for why I don't like Infector. I think it's the weakest of the three paths.
Infector. Which
See, this-
I always forget the name.
This
Generate-
comes-
Generate charged echoes and get multi-strike.
I
It's
think
weird
it's
'cause
a reliable way to gain charge echoes though, and
Yeah.
it'll buff your
I like it with Inspire units. Like
yeah, it'll buff your
um,
inspire units.
Yeah. I guess my argument there would be that I just would rather have Corruptor in that case if I have units on the floor with it. It's weird because I actually think it's a really good path. To me, the other two paths just eclipse it in terms of consistency. But it's hard for me to say that it's a bad path. Like, the times I've done it, it goes really well.
I like it more than Decayer if I just don't have a lot of Inspire cards. Like, I think
If you have Drags or something like that.
And I think it's the only path that can work with X. I think.
I think I can make them all work pretty well with eggs.
Yeah. Well, it depends on which egg. I think that Bog Deep Cocoon is kind of unplayable, but if you have one of the other two, 8 isn't so many and 5 isn't so many. I think you can make it work with any. But I do agree it's much better with egg, and it's certainly really good with what is it even called? The Bogfly egg.
It's a
Bogfly Chrysalis.
Bogfly Chrysalis. Yeah. Bog Chrysalis.
Yeah.
With Bog Chrysalis, it's actually really good because not only do your Bogflies get there faster, they're going to scale damage the longer that they stay in Relentless. Like that combo is really strong.
Yep.
And it's pretty good with Keeper, as Narninian mentioned. I think it's pretty good with. But I mean, how often are you going to get plus 40 out of it? That's the question, right? Like, how often do you get actually 40 charged echoes out of it? Where you would just get not even plus 40, because what is it? It's plus 40 per charged echo, right? No, it's plus. What is it? What is
I mean, so you're talking raw damage, but like you got to think about like it has multi-strike and it provides sustain when you're talking adding like Inspire
with Keeper. With Keeper, you're right.
Yeah.
Because if you talk about just raw sustain, the other two paths have more raw health. It's the least. No, which one has the least amount of health?
It's the middle.
Corruptor has the least, right?
Yeah.
Corruptor has the least, yeah. Decayer has the most.
Decayer has the most. But you're right. Like with the Keeper, then you're getting he's healing himself kind of every time.
It can be flexible too. Like I've flexed it into the others when, like you said, if you for some reason you have troubles generating echoes, or even if you just have a like I've done Infector and Decayer, and you can go either way there. Like you can get 2 strikes with 1 Decayer or 1 strike with 2 Decayer, and you don't even have to. You can just plop it down, and it will just do things for you without any need to give it any TLC. And you can just focus on another floor at that point.
I mean, the built-in multi-strike is like we're comparing it to Brawler, right? Like the big upside of Brawler is that it has multi-strike, and this has, yes, it's slower multi-strike, but I think the fact that you have that with the champion path built in is pretty strong in itself. Yes, the other paths have some strong things as well. I just think it's pretty good because of that.
It's at least good. Like, it's not bad at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say at least good for sure.
Yeah, and you can always flex into the other path, or other paths you can just take one. No, not really. I don't think you can take one rank. Normally it would be. I've taken 2 ranks of Infector and 1 rank of Corruptor before, like that, just for some more damage. You get your charge echoes and you get your damage on yourself and the units on the same floor. So that can...
Yeah, you're basically guaranteeing at least 10 extra damage to the whole floor each turn.
Mm-hmm.
Which is nice. And
yeah.
I mean, you can't flex the other 2 into each other. That doesn't make any sense. But you can always flex Infector. I would say Infector is what makes, like, it's really good during Relentless.
Mm-hmm.
I think it becomes less good throughout the earlier, where the other 2 are consistent throughout the entire fight. Infector trumps the others when it comes to just relentless combat.
Right. And I think that's why I prefer the other 2, is just because those other 2 come in right from the gate doing a ton of stuff. Corruptor will clear waves right from the get-go. Or sorry, Decayer.
Yeah, and then I guess the last thing I'll say is Infector scales better with a lot of buffs because of the multi-strike, but like the others don't need as much scaling.
Okay, so
definitely.
Well, I think we'll just do put in my good here.
Yeah.
Next is what is this?
Is that supposed to be Corruptor, or is that supposed to be?
I'm gonna guess it's Corruptor, just because the other one has R.
Correct.
I'm guessing R is for Reap.
Yeah.
I will say, ever since Gabriot introduced me to this, I have literally never lost a run with Corruptor and a draft.
Yeah.
And I've done a lot of them.
And that's kind of hard.
None of the other cards matter.
Yeah. It just wins it.
Same with Sweep. You get Corruptor, plus you get Husk Hermit, and you're loving life.
Yep.
Yep. Or you get Bogfly or the Bog Chrysalis, and then...
Yeah.
I mean...
Yeah, Chrysalis.
Like, those cards you need other stuff, but draft you don't. Like, literally just your starting cards in draft.
Right.
Oh, because of the reform, you mean?
Well, I mean, I guess that would have to require it to be exiled melting, but I do mean literally just draft and Corruptor and starting cards.
Because you did that was a quarantine run, right?
Yeah.
Do you dupe it though? You'd have to dupe it, right?
Dupe the drafts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you don't have enough strikes to kill Divinity without duping it.
Yeah, you would dupe the drafts. And maybe
I guess if
use them,
if you started with 2 though, I could see if you just add quick and multi-strike.
No, I like to have enough to like play them on other floors to get them like reformed.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Corruptor's really good. It is the one that is the least sustainable in terms of like Patient can be kind of rough because the biggest problem with Corruptor is if it dies, your floor just sucks.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, I think
obviously the main issue here is size, right? Like because it buffs per strike basically, and it takes up 3 of your 5 base pips. That is a pretty big issue.
I think early game you're often actually correct to not frontline with it. You might lose the few pyre health, but you'll be fine in Relentless then. That's one thing I would say.
All the way through Ring 3. I even if you have a good unit with multi-strike, I still think you need the Corruptor damage that much.
Right.
Later on, when it gets the second upgrade health, and especially the third upgrade health, you kind of have to frontline with it.
Right.
And what's nice about it is it's one of the only paths where like 4 charged echoes is enough.
Yeah.
Like you don't really need more than it. Where the others you rely on like having lots of charged echoes.
80 damage for 4 echoes, not too bad of a deal.
No, it's pretty good.
Yeah. I tend to say win game by self. I think it's one that is easy to misplay with. When I lose, it's my own problem. I don't think
I'm gonna
say great.
hard disagree there. I don't think it's win game by itself by a long shot, but I think it's great.
Yeah, I think it's also great.
It needs another unit. Like it needs another unit to win.
And it needs sustain. It needs sustain, and it needs a unit. And it needs it needs a good unit.
I guess I just find it so likely that you'll find a good unit for it, even within the Wormkin arsenal. You have the 2 common tier or uncommon tier eggs that are pretty good with it. Granted, it makes it slower to get going, but there's so many cards that can get around that, like and even artifacts like Soul Siphon, even like Bounding Echoes, or even like an infused first or whatever it's called, like Kin, with the one that like adds permanent echoes. And you can put the 2 1-pip units before they hatch, and you'll either get 2 multi-strikers or just 4 flies on the floor. And if you're lucky enough to find quick, health, multi-strike, any of those combo, it's pretty hard to lose at that point. Because with the quick, they prevent almost all the damage coming in, other than on Divinity. But there's Shelter, there's Daze, there's a lot of options to deal with it. But yeah, I guess I can see great, because as I say that there needs to be those things to win it, which technically is not win game by itself.
Now there's another path, however.
So Decayer, number 3. Decayer has the one bane of its existence is Dregs, secondary clan.
Yeah.
Apart from that one single path, I think it's the most consistent.
I agree.
Yeah, I think it's even okay with Dregs and Imps. It's easier to forget. Like I've lost because I've misplayed, but like I don't think it's even too bad, at least like the early rings, to put them in front of Decayer, and they're gonna die. And usually I don't like have more than 2 that I need to play out in a turn. So it's often not even a downside, and I feel. And by mid to late game, I think just hopefully you can remove those. But yeah, I'll agree they're not as good as the spell commons, but I think they're not that much of a huge downside.
The only reason I specifically pick out Dregs is at least with the Imps, they're doing some immediate damage, which is often, and like I feel like they block better than Dregs block, even though they have 1 health. Like they did their job. If you play a dragon, it just dies. It didn't do anything. It literally was 0 cost, block a hit, get a charged echo. Whereas the Imps actually have some value. But yeah, I mean, in general, like Decayer was the one that, like, me personally couldn't imagine getting it to work until you play it, and then you realize, like, this thing destroys floors. It just annihilates floors.
Annihilates them. Yeah, it's crazy. Even in a deck that doesn't use it well, still does a ton.
I guess the main downside is the Divinity fight. Like if you use this champ to destroy the floors and then maximize your deck to do that, it's not going to destroy Divinity by itself.
Maybe.
I've done
flying kill Divinity with Decayer.
Yep, same.
But you probably need also the artifact that gives you an additional reap.
Well, that one actually, I mean, it's fine. The additional reap is fine. You're going from 5 to 6, which is pretty marginal. I actually think that if there's any
Karuska.
case for carving Karuska, it's this. Like carving Karuska, you can. I'm convinced you could not have anything but a bunch of spells and Decayer, and if you have carving Karuska, you can win.
Or even Bog Slime.
Or Bog Slime, yeah, something that will generate extra. Two, it's the number of charged echoes. I think is really the key.
Right.
Yeah.
So, are you thinking win game by itself?
I think it's win game by itself, borderline.
Yeah.
It's out of what we reviewed so far, it's the closest.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've beaten Divinity Covenant 25 with no banner units with it, so I think it,
Okay.
and not even like drafts or anything.
Okay. I guess we can put one there since there isn't anyone that is there right now.
And we move on to the Exiles.
The Exiles, I have a feeling they're going to be on
All
average
right.
higher.
Yes. Well, and on average,
Except for Wellington.
Yeah, except for Wellington. Shartel Queen. What do we start with?
We start with the In Parade.
I think
So-
we're going to disagree on this one.
I think the hardest part about Shartel Queen is she's so good to mix and match.
Mm-hmm.
Like I rarely go all in.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the 3 levels, it's just so hard to use both those imps is the problem. Like,
Yeah. There's honestly sometimes where I wish you could skip the champ 3rd upgrade, because it was like I had an Apex imp on the floor and I had 2 points of Imp Parade, and then it offered me Imperialist and Imp Parade. So it's like it's actually a downgrade for me to take the Imperialist.
You can skip it, but
not once it comes up.
Oh, really?
So, right.
It's
so
click
once
and done.
Yeah, it's like I wanted in that case to not take any of it, because obviously I don't want Apex Imp to die, but I also don't want those Welder Helpers.
Could you imagine if it was Transcendent? Like it went Queen's Imp Lane into. I think the biggest problem with Imp Parade rank 3 is I just think standalone Welder Helpers are not good late game. They're fantastic early mid game, but I want the
infusions. Yeah,
I want the essence. I don't want the unit.
Yeah, exactly. Like you need to keep every unit alive, not just your front unit. Yeah.
Yeah, and
so
the space is also a problem.
The thing about this is I like getting 2 levels of it. I feel like I think they're almost equivalent. 2 levels of Imp Parade and 2 levels of Rally are almost equivalent to me, because you get Rage for scaling or you get hard scaling.
Except that one does the whole floor.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
And makes your imps free.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on. I mean, the downside is you might get a Rage Imp, and then you don't have room for it all. But yeah, I agree. Like, I think it's very good to have 2 levels of Imp Parade. I think the 3rd level is usually pretty bad.
I can make the 3rd level work more times than I can't, I would say. But it's not great. It's definitely not great. It's more like I was able to do it without it ruining my deck kind of thing.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing is, depending on your cards, it becomes worse, right? So if you start with Fledgling Imps and you have Forever Flame, for example,
then you don't really need it.
It becomes like problematic even sometimes if you don't have the space for it.
Might just trigger harvests for the enemy.
Yeah. The other part too is if you get, for example, your imp killers, right? Your sacrificial cards.
Important work.
Yeah, especially important work, but even in general, like I want to play those on my endless imps. I don't want to play those on my plate imps, and it's very common for me. Even when I do 2 floor setups, it's very common that I just have like a bunch of random Welder Helpers just stuck
Yep.
and I can't get rid of them because I'm not gonna. If I have a Transcend Imp, if I have an infused Fledgling Imp, I will always play it on those.
Yep.
And they just keep stacking up and stacking up and stacking up.
And then they might trigger Pyre Wings or
Yes.
Harvests,
Yeah.
and it's just sad.
And obviously, the value goes up a lot if you don't have any, like if you don't find endless, and you like, for example, mix in the explosion path. You need a source of imps then.
Yeah. I've had it win me the game before. I mean, there was a run where like I had an Apex Imp that only had Rail Beater Infusion as its only armor synergy until I went rank 3 of Imperialist or Imp Parade. And then it actually gave it a Welder Helper every turn.
And it's pretty good against Divinity. The problem is it's bad against Seraph, against basically all 4 Seraphs.
Yeah.
But it's really good against Divinity because you could just play them in the top floor and they die every time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, as a general, I have to say I love Imperialist though. It's like it's so just free value, right?
And I mean, we're not talking about Imperialist right now, but like
Imp Parade.
Yeah. Oh, I see.
I meant Imp Parade. I said Imperialist.
Yeah, I think it's strong.
Yeah, I think it's just great. I'd agree with great. I think it's like maybe not the rank 3. If rank 3, then maybe just good, but just 2 ranks or even one rank. Sometimes you actually want the Queen Simpling instead, and just because you have
kind of rare. Yeah.
So sorry.
Like, yeah, I find that kind of rare. I mean, maybe to fuel.
Yeah, because sometimes you have like endless Fledgling Imp and then you have a Transcendent.
And you're just building up a lot of damage burst. Yeah, I mean, I see that as well.
And you don't have you don't have the space to actually play Fledgling Imp on the same floor as your Shartail Queen.
The other one too that I actually like with rank 1 is exactly Transcendent to make it 1 cost.
Yeah.
So
so you can play multiple or whatever.
Yes, so you can play more than one, or you can do the whole, important work combo legitimately.
Right.
So then what's next? Royalty.
This is my least favorite, and I think you pointed it out already. It only scales 1 unit, and it doesn't matter if it does 500 damage. It's still going to attack once.
Right.
It also has lower base health than at least than the other paths, I think. Let me double check.
Yeah, this is one where I ran it a lot pre-DLC. I thought it was pretty good DLC or pre-DLC, but post-DLC, I just don't. It's not that it's bad. It's just, to me, I would almost always want to take the other paths over it.
AoE just became so much more important.
Right. Both for killing and also AoE like buffs to your own stuff is just way better than 1 unit getting everything.
Yeah, it has the middle level health, and actually that actually is a real factor, like for me, like comparing it to Imperialist, because Imperialist can last twice as long,
right,
if you're looking at 3 levels.
Definitely. It's also like, I don't know, the scaling, you could even argue it'll get a lot of damage if it's like it can be bad though, like if you low roll and don't find endless and you don't find Imp Parade, then you're actually not getting much rallies a lot of the time.
Yeah, unless they're melting. But
melting. If you have reform, you'll be good. But yeah.
So I would say it's good because Shartail Queen never has to do one path. It can always do one of the other 2.
Right.
So it's a great way to get some scaling if you just don't have any in your deck.
Yeah.
But it's mainly due to the other 2 paths being able to be mixed in.
Yeah.
I would put it at good. Like, or maybe even okay.
I
Probably
think I
okay.
would
makes
put
more
it
sense.
That's where I would-
okay though.
Yeah, I guess
yeah.
okay, yeah. And it's weird because it's never like it's just because I would never take 3 levels of rally.
Right.
And also you I think you have to pivot into one of the other 2 paths if you're taking rally rank 1.
I mean, not necessarily, because there are like you can do specifically Melting Remnant. You can do tomb builds, and it's
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah.
Right.
You do stealth tombs.
Yeah,
And they're
I mean
just-
that's I would say that's more of a like the stealth is good and the tomb builds are good.
Well, but
And
stealth. It's you also need units that can do lots of damage, and it's a unit that can do lots of damage. So it's
Yeah.
But no, you're right. Like stealth is by itself really strong, but it does scale. Like rank 3 scales pretty quickly to where you're killing a lot of frontliners fairly reliably. But in general, it doesn't do enough. You still need tons of support to kill the rest of the floor, and
But I
So
think
there-
it's suffers the same as the Wrathful Prince. It's that even if it's good, it's only hitting for 1, and you need multi-strike on it.
yeah, that's right. And you can't fragile it. It
I
has
mean,
too much health to
I
fragile
guess
it.
the main thing is like it's a backup plan if you don't find any sources of scaling in your deck. If you don't get a fledgling lamp and you don't have any other sources of scaling, it's really good scaling for 1 unit.
It's purely relentless, although you have to like it has to be for relentless. It's not scaling for.
Yeah.
for your
Well, I
force.
mean, you could have a Transcendent with Queen's Impling to kill floors.
That's
and
right.
That won't kill Relentless. But yeah. I think that's a good spot.
And then we have the final one.
And then Imperialist.
Move it up, please.
Yeah.
Boom.
Love me some
All right.
Imperialist.
It's very good. Obviously, you can't win the game by itself because you need an imp, but it's so good.
Yep.
Yeah, it's I think it's just these 2. If you have just these 2 together, it's just yeah. You I think you need both of these to actually win the game, but it's just really good.
So the one build that's the exception is 2 rank royalty, 1 rank imperialist reform builds.
Yeah.
That's the strongest Startail Queen build, but you have to have reform and you have to have Melting Remnant.
I mean, I would say even with Reform though, Imperialist is pretty strong because then you don't have to like kill it on another floor.
No, I'm just saying that like in terms of like you can actually have it solo if you specifically have royalty 2 and you have reforming imps, because it will kill the imps no matter how much burnout they have, and it will scale to be able to defeat bosses. Like that's the big thing, is that you get the scaling from royalty, but that is such a very specific build that it's not really worth discussing in general. In general, Imperialist, I find rank 3 is almost never worth it. The extra damage, you go from 40 to 60, but the 40 is enough. The 40 is already what you need to kill every backliner that you need to kill. And so for me, I pivot every time. No matter what it is, I will not take rank 3.
I think it's 20, 30.
I do like the base starting health in case you're relying on a card solution for like divinity or something. But yeah, I think 2 levels is enough for that.
I've done 3 on Imperialist a lot just because it's only going to be because I don't find Imp Parade. Usually, a lot of times with Shardtail, it's not part of my. It might not be part of my main floor. If I didn't find Fledgling Imp, let's put it that way. And in that case, royalty probably doesn't get me anything, and I'm better off just getting that extra health so it survives a few more turns and clears a few more waves. But yeah, it's not like super great to go Imperialist 3. It's not like you're never foaming at the mouth to be like, ooh, I'm Imperialist 3. Now I get my 3rd rank power spike, right?
Yeah.
It is also oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say this is I would say top tier of the champion path for one reason alone, and that is Welder Helper is borderline. It's so hard to use without it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's also simultaneously one of the best and worst units to put quick on is Imperialist Shark Tycoon. It's really good. It's really good when you don't care about your imps doing damage, and it is so frustrating when you actually need like one hit from an imp and then you can't do it. But yeah, quick is amazing on it because then you just never have to worry.
Yeah, then you don't need survivability on your imps for like AoEs. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are your guys' thoughts on Ring 1 if you see Imperialist? For me, I lock it in every time. Doesn't even matter.
Yeah, usually. I'm trying to think of a scenario where I wouldn't.
But would you pick in Parade or Imperialist?
I would pick Imperialist.
Yeah.
It really depends for me. If it is, if you start with the tail, I would take Imparade because it's a guaranteed extra draw every turn.
Yeah,
that's true.
And if you get double summons, I would take Imparade.
Yeah. And Melting Remnant, I would probably take Imperialist.
Yes. Yeah.
Could be good argument to go Artifact first with Shard Tail.
Yeah.
Yes. Get some information there. I just feel like in general, Imperialist has such a strong Ring 1. Like I can take every single trial. I probably won't even take a single bit of fire damage. Like
Ring 3 is rough.
Right. And then I've locked in my point of Imperialist. Like if I were to get stuck Imperialist 3 or Imp Parade 3, I'd rather be Imperialist 3, I think, just because you're guaranteed to have an endless imp be playable every turn. Even just the existence of Transcend Imp. I mean, if you think about it, it's not that unlikely to hit a single rare. You probably won't hit them in over half your games, but you'll hit them in a significant amount. And the fact that Transcendent plus Queen's Imp exists, and if you find Endless on it, with a point of Imperialist, you should have basically won the game because you can play it every turn then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if Transcendent was a champion, it would be on the top one.
Well, I mean, that's true of a lot of the rare units. Bounty Stalker would be there. Apex Imp would be there. Morsel Mage would be there. There's a lot of that. If you could start with them in your, I mean, that's also why that one challenge, expert challenge, is sometimes easier than the actual normal game.
Oh, the Dante one.
No, not the Dante one.
Or no champ, no problem.
Yeah, because you get double triggers.
No champ, no problem is definitely easier.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely no problem, all right.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see if no champ, no problem without double triggers is better for a lot of clans.
I mean, over Rector Flicker, maybe
or over Prince, probably a lot. Yeah.
Next up,
Vodenton.
Gabriel's favorite.
What is this? Quick.
I need some drama main. I'm getting nauseous.
Well, he's just too
30
fat.
health. 30 health is like 30 health.
And he's fat. He's so fat.
And quick is like, let's move that down already.
I think we can start this here and then we can move him down if necessary.
I guess my main problem is like it technically can be good on paper, but this is a clan that has quick tome. This is a clan that has Animus of Speed infusion. This is just a game where you can find a quick upgrade at Merchant of Steel. Do you really need your whole floor quick? Most of the time I find no. Most of the time, in the case of like a Shattered Shell, for example, I don't want anybody else quick. I only want it quick.
And also spikes is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So what would make it work is if Hidden Passage was in Awoken rather than Hellhorned.
Yeah.
The incentive to multi-strike, or the incentive to overstack is there, but the only overstack possible card is so bad to take. You just can't. And like that's the case. So for me, if I go Hellhorn, I can go Predator 3 and I don't stress. I just put a bunch of demons on the floor, ascend them all, and I have a good time. But apart from that specific scenario, it's just not that great.
Yeah.
And then the other problem is that Multi-Strike 2 competes with so many better units to buff.
Right.
Yeah, that's the other thing is like it's not that good a unit to use all of your damage buffs on. Because he doesn't have sweep. Yes, you can mix paths, but then he only has multi-strike one. And so I would almost put him at bad.
I think he's okay. I wouldn't put him all the way to bad. I think it's okay.
It's swingy.
But yeah, it's.
I like that the path exists in case you have a really good unit that can fit on the floor. You can add quick, and it's just like, okay, you're spending a lot of resources, 3 capacity, to get quick to that unit, but maybe you just didn't see it, and you can get a multi-strike on that unit or something.
I think you guys mentioned this before, but like Wellington is really good at clearing waves, but not really good at just dealing with bosses.
Yeah.
One thing that really pisses me off is that Eel will cleanse its quick.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's the dumbest interaction.
Yeah, what's the point of an enchant if it's not like it's like you'd think it'd be like
it's present. There, it's ever present.
Right.
But no.
Well, what will cleanse the quick?
Because if I
Eel Gorgon cleanses quick.
Oh yeah.
It's a one-time buff for anybody that's on the floor, so it's cleansed. It works the same way with like channelers. You can cleanse the spikes, but still,
it's annoying though because if I let's say I descend a unit off the floor, they no longer have quick.
Yes.
So why does Eel Gorgon not just get quick if it's like something that's?
It should be every turn to all units. I think they should code it that it applies quick to all units on the floor at the beginning of turn.
Right. Not that Eel Gorgon needs buffs necessarily, but it's just like an annoying interaction.
In that case, it does though, because that is not intuitive and very irritating.
Right.
But no, I think we're in a good spot with it being okay.
Okay.
But yeah.
I agree.
Sweep.
I will say some people swear by it. Some people swear by Predator, but I just it's hard for me to.
It's nice built-in way to scale. I guess that's where a lot of these champions are. Is like you can find better ways to scale, but this is a more guaranteed way.
It's always there are always it's a combo piece, but it's not like it's the most important piece of the combo.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, sweep.
I don't know.
I think it's very good. I think it's good compared to. I don't think it's great. I think it's good.
I think it's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, I kind of think it's bad.
Oh, I think it's good.
I think it will lose you a lot of runs. If you
it's a skill. It's a skilled path that if you don't play it correctly, it will lose you runs.
I can see that, but you can use it in 2 ways that I think make it good. One is, I guess, Nathaniel used this term earlier as not a goalkeeper, but I guess a prevent, like allowing you to set up your floor. It'll die. It has a lot of health, but eventually it'll die, and then you've set up your floor. The other thing is, preventing leaks. You'll never have to worry about leaks. It's a built-in sweep in a clan that has sweep, but in a unit that has ways to scale and a lot of health, and it has a lot of health.
It's also the main piece of the most reliable build in the game, which is the rat trap.
Yeah.
So I can never put it to bad though. I think it's, if you're right, it can lose you the game, but it's not what lost you the game. Like I think that Angel said it right. I think it has a high skill cap to use it properly, but I wouldn't say it's what lost you the game. I think if you don't build around it properly, yes, it can become a detriment, but then you build around it properly.
See, I think that particularly on Chased, if you don't have a good way to deal with Pyre Wings, it can pretty much lose you the game. I've had it happen, at least for me.
You mean just having multiple Ember Drains stacking up and?
Well, yeah, it's like basically you'll lose all your Ember if you can't kill the Pyre Wings, and then it's like then the units start stacking up, and then it's like you never can get Ember again. So if you can't kill the Pyre Wing in 2 hits, sorry, not maybe even Chased is a bad example. I'd say even Pyre Wings, the Ring 7 is a better example, because in those cases sometimes you had a deck that could probably deal with most things, but you can't deal with some of those waves where there's 2 tanks in front of Pyre Wings.
Yeah,
and then it's like
Ember Drain, Ember Drain, Ember Drain, Ember Drain, Ember Drain.
Right,
yeah.
right. And you never have Ember past that. That's probably the main one, I would say. I guess. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I do think this is one of the big problems I have with Root as like the Entangle card.
Yeah.
I think Entangle card has a similar type of effect where like you use it to try to stall, and the stalling just kills you because you're often stalling high health things that then block you from killing more important things.
Right.
I think what pushes it over the edge for me is Sweep. I mean, Narninian, you mentioned it. It's the clan of Sweep. At the same time, you don't always have Husk Hermit, or you don't always have Shattered Shell. And being able to have Sweep that is guaranteed is pretty valuable. I mean, Sweep is just always good. But yeah, I mean, I guess there are edge cases, but I feel like there are a lot of edge cases with a lot of champions, and I wouldn't judge it around those edge cases. I think the standard is it's okay, and that's kind of where I would say it sits, maybe okay, good. But man, the Rat Trap build is so good. It's so so stupidly good.
So what is the Rat Trap build?
Rat Trap build is Molten Encasement plus Wellington, and you win.
Yeah, I mean, you do need some damage scaling, otherwise you're gonna get people walking past you. But yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, I think we can. So, do you want to move up to the good?
I guess it's okay. I thought, yeah.
Or just put it.
I think it's okay.
Front of
and it is one where you only want one rank, no matter what. It's never worth taking multiple ranks.
Mainly because of this next path. It's so weird how that.
You know what?
I think Quick could screw you sometimes. That you might want to take Strangler just so you actually get health.
Well, especially a Rat Trap build, but
right.
I mean, Quick and the Quick and Sweep Predator and this it's these two paths like come. I think it's a usual mixed path options.
Yeah, it's the way to kill waves without taking damage.
Yeah.
I also think that Wildington's one of the only champions where I would be totally fine taking rank 1 of all 3.
Yeah,
definitely. Doesn't gain huge benefits from the additional ranks.
So then we can talk about Thornlord.
Yeah.
Preserve Thornlord.
Yeah, Preserve Thornlord. It's it's really good in Incant, and it's really mediocre in all the rest.
Yep.
It's actually the only one I like to see anymore. if I'm being honest.
I,
I don't love it,
I-
but at least it grants me a full hand turn 2, and that's basically all I get from it.
I
It's
mean,
the highest health one path, right?
Highest health, yeah.
I think it's for me, like I used to really like it. I used to like really like this the incant. It's and you get the extra draw, but it's right now with the last divinity, it's not. I don't like it. It's too slow.
Scaling.
It's too slow.
Yeah, it's scaling's. I hate the scaling. It's so bad. Like even
It's ironically though, it's ironically the best card to play with root seeds because you play root seeds on something else and it actually benefits.
True.
But no, I don't disagree. I think you cannot rely on it as anything other than a tank that does a tiny bit of damage and grants you a really good turn 2.
Maybe, yeah.
I think I just have found more success with Wildentin not using him on my floor. So I'm like pessimistic here, but I think that's why I like the Thorn Lord, just because I put it down. Yeah, and I you know, if I have a Bounding Echoes in my opener, I can then play it after that and get all that inspiration gas, or even like a Stygian, I can get some incant gas. But typically, I just don't want those 3 pips dedicated to such a poorly statted unit. For 3 pip, I'd rather just fit like either a 2 pip units, depending on my situation, or even just a 2 pip and a 1 pip. Like imps, for example, I'd rather just put imps with some other units, or just set up an incant floor of proper incanters like sirens or whatnot. But yeah, and or proper inspiration type units.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's funny. Like all these levels of Wildentin are okay, but Root Seeds is good.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Root Seeds is really good. You know what Root Seeds is really good with is Wormkin.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really good with Wormkin.
Yeah.
And Stygian, yeah.
Yeah, Stygian.
It's also really that's actually one thing about Awoken is both starter cards are like pretty good, and
yeah,
I don't know.
With the exception of like Umbra and Hellhorn, like Restore is not that good, but
the worst thing about Root Seeds is that it's not Restore when you get rejuvenation based units.
Right.
Yeah.
And Awoken Hall is a pretty good unit. Or
so is
Steel Singer.
Yeah, the big man himself, Steel Singer. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I've had a few where I try a Steel Singer with Root Seeds. It
can work,
bad.
But it's brutal.
Right. Have to do things like Glimmer on Holdover.
It's time for Soul Guard then.
Yeah.
Well, first
I actually think this.
Speaking about unplayable paths.
Is that the Frostbite?
Yeah, that's Frostbite.
Oh, see, right. I got some disagreements there.
No, that's the it's the Dire Channel. That's the Dire Channel.
Oh, see, now this one I say is unplayable.
I don't think it's unplayable.
I feel like there's no reason to pick it over Dire Channel or Titan Channel.
I would agree with that, but I would pick it over Frost Channel.
Yeah, it scales better than Titan Channel, but like, do you need it? I don't know.
I don't even know that it does.
I don't think it does.
Yeah, like it. I guess my arguments with Titan Channel is you can get around the Ember Drain, which is it's worth something. I mean, that's a whole Ember turn 2. You have way more health, and for the shards that you unlock it at, Dire Channel's not even close to the Titan Channel damage yet. It's basically only beats it like past a certain point, right?
Titan Channel also does really well in the Diligence, where the other two struggle.
Yeah.
So Dire Channel, it can work in some very specific setups. It does have a quasi multi-strike built in.
Yeah, but if you count that, then it's not actually doing a regular strike that's any good, right? So it's not. So It's hard to consider that.
Well, so where it can be really good is in Hellhorn Rage builds.
Yeah.
So if you have Hellhorn Rage builds and you can add Rage to it, it's actually pretty good because you get the incant plus you get the Rage damage and it multi-strikes. But 2 strikes does not a build make. You need more than that, or you need AoE. And the biggest problem with Dire Channel is its health total is so bad, even all the way up to rank 3. And so for me, I've always done, if I even go Dire Channel, I do rank 1 Titan Channel with it, just so it doesn't die.
Yeah.
And it gets and rank 1 of Titan Channel is really good. It's 50 attack.
Obviously, there are exceptions. Like if you have sustained covered otherwise, like just having I'll take 3 levels of Dire Channel occasionally, but I agree. It's usually not the way to go.
I guess my main problem too is like it's hard for me to justify floor space for Dire Channel because every other incanter would just be better there.
Yeah,
normally
like
that's-
I agree.
Siren.
Yeah, I think that if you're playing Dire Channel, then you are most likely putting him in the back. So any backline incant unit, CJ unit with the incant, it's good. It's much better than the Dire Channel.
Yeah.
And the worst part is you don't want big frontline burst in the backline. You want that on your frontliner so that your sweep and your backliners can clear the backline. And that's also kind of annoying, is like you put Dire Channel in the back and it's like doing 200 damage to the third
15.
unit, and then you have 2 units behind that kill your pyre.
Right.
Yeah.
And you also
you do 200 damage to a 15 health unit because that's
what's in the front, and then
it's a sad situation.
Also, I can't remember. Does Trample work with Dire Channel?
No,
Nope.
not the action.
I didn't think so.
Yeah, not the
Neither
action.
that or multi-strike also doesn't.
Which irritates me because it does work with Shadow Eater.
Right.
I don't understand why the action trigger doesn't. Anyway, it's fine. It's fine.
So would you say it's bad? Would you say it's bad?
I would say it's bad.
I say trash.
I say
I'd rather have Reaper.
Interesting. I would say it's bad. I don't think I would rather have it than Reaper for sure. And part of that is just the clan, but like
Yeah.
I would put it as bad, but I know you really want. I wouldn't say
it should probably go bad. I mean,
I think it's bad. I think it's bad.
I'm being facetious. It's probably better than Reaper. Maybe the end of bad.
There we go.
Yeah. Okay.
Frost Channel.
Okay.
Now we talk about trash tier.
Now we can just move that down to trash tier. I mean, I enjoy my runs where it works.
I think it's not that bad as it's a replacement to Titan Sentry, and I think if you don't,
I don't think it is. I don't think
No.
it's the replacement.
Titan Channel's better because you can put endless on it.
Titan Sentry, you plop it down and you're done. This one you have to cast like 10 times.
Well, I mean,
but if you're
depends
playing
on what
you
you want
can
from it, though.
floor, if you're playing you can floor, you need you probably need a tank in the front, anyways. And you don't need to to actually pick up a tank, and you just have this guy as.
I think it's worse than Dire Channel.
I think it's worse than Dire Channel. And so here's the thing, though. This is the same caveat. If you are not playing Covenant 25 Divinity, it's amazing. It's one of the best paths for non-Divinity.
Pre-Divinity, it was the best path. I think all of us thought of it that way.
But Divinity does too much damage, and Frostbite is so bad against Divinity, it doesn't work.
I've tried 2 ranks of the Frost Channel and 1 rank of Titan Channel, and it's to give it more health. I think it works fine, but I guess it's not really the.
Wouldn't it be better to do 1 and 2 though? Wouldn't it be better to go 1 rank and 2 ranks of Titan Channel to get better stats?
So I'll say this:
that's true.
like as we were doing this discussion, I did a random, and I just won with Soul Guard Frost Path, but that was because I had a Guardian Stone. I think that's the exception. With a Guardian Stone, I think it's pretty good.
The only issue I have with it is it's not like it is good, but it's still not going to carry your run.
Yeah, I mean, even then, I don't feel like it was doing enough damage to support it versus a different path.
Actually, no, you guys go ahead. I need to look something up really quick.
I was going to say, like, the one thing that surprised me is I thought that Reap would be on par with Frostbite and just really, really bad. And it's not that they aren't affected the same way. Like, Frostbite is, I would say, much better in small doses than Reap, where I think Reap you need a lot before it like becomes like really, really good. But like having lots and lots and lots of Frostbite actually isn't that necessary. You can have a little bit of Frostbite and it's as good as having a lot of Reap. Does that make sense? Like, specifically talking about high health and bosses. But like you get 20 Frostbite on a unit and across 3 floors, it's like pretty good. It's really just Divinity that it all falls apart.
Yeah. I mean, it's not just Divinity though, because it's the
higher damage you get across the board because of shards.
Yeah, like it's also like sustain is rough because you need to get hit to do your damage, and things do a lot of damage, and you don't have a lot of health. So
yeah. I think I think it would be a much better tank would be like the Titan Channel or
you know what I would really like? Maybe it's just crazy. I would like it is a flat amount of Frostbite, and then it's scaled health on shards instead.
That could work.
So 5, 10, 20. 5, 10, 20. And then, or even like if it's just 10, it's 10 at all ranks, and it scales 1 health, and then it scales 3 health, and then it scales 5 health per incant.
Yeah.
That I could see being really strong, even into Divinity.
Right. I would like that. So I would put it at good personally. I've had pretty good results with it since the last few months of playing. My thoughts on it are that it's always going to do something for me, even if on the low end of that, it's just clearing the backliners on like 2 waves. But at that point, in that situation, I'm not playing it on my main floor, and I can just put it down, get maybe 2 or 3 incants, and a full rank of Cold Channel is still going to kill the backliners of wave 1 through 2, maybe 3, depending on the ring.
I just think that's a huge opportunity cost. Like if you are giving up your champion to basically like do a glimmer, like I think that's rough.
Maybe, but if I compare to say Dire, I guess I'm never taking it over Dire Channel for the reason of looking at that low, the low roll there where it's just not on my floor. Dire Channel won't do anything at all for me. At least Cold Channel will clear those waves. But I think even on top of that, when I have a build that utilizes Cold Channel on my main floor, I think it still crushes everything in the game. Now that obviously needs defense, but a lot of clans have some big stuff there. Like Awoken's the most straightforward just with heals, but there's a few, like I thought Umbra was bad with it. I don't know so much anymore. Like feeding it morsels, particularly if you have Feast or Shroud Spike, can be pretty insane. You can also give it Lifesteal to get it, usually if you're scaling it with morsels, it gets attack as well. At that point, you can flex a Titan Channel in, get 40 attack at 4 shards, and then it can heal a lot back with Immortal Trade. So there's a lot of options that actually make Cold Channel still work, I think. And as I've had it carry a lot of runs for me recently. Still agree that on Divinity it's not as good, but it's still it basically still clears all the waves. And then in Relentless, it will still crush. I guess that's my argument for Cold Channel.
Yeah,
I think the skill floor lifted quite a lot, and that's probably where
Right.
for me, where I'm only playing on average like 1 to 2 games a day, and that's like when I'm doing heavy. So I probably just need to play with it more. I've had so many bad experiences that I like just kind of by default think, okay, it's going to be another bad experience. I'm going to go with the more reliable.
Yeah, but
And I also think I've had really good runs with Dire Channel, so I think it's I probably just lack of experience.
Right.
I think it's better than Dire Channel. That it because it does clear the backline, and you don't need as many backline targeting spells as you would if you're taking Dire Channel. And if you're not getting Titan Channel, then and just get these two, then I would just take the Frost Channel. So are we putting it at okay?
I would agree to okay. I think I need to play with it more.
Yeah, I guess that's fine. I just think against the patient and the temperate health is rough.
And with diligent, scaling is rough.
True.
And Chase, I guess Chase still is okay, but yeah. Anyway,
Chase, the frostbite goes away every turn.
Right. Purify. There might be. I think there's a certain amount of shards you can keep it under to prevent Purify and Chase.
140, I believe. If I remember looking at the spreadsheet, I think it's 140.
Pretty rare for me to be under that.
Okay.
All right.
So then
Titan Channel.
Last is Titan Channel. Even though Titan Channel is good, it's still not great. The best thing about Titan Channel is that it's straightforward and it's got a freaking lot of stats for a space, but it can't carry you other than the sustain. It can carry you through sustain, but you still need a lot behind it in order to win. But man, it's a lot of health. How do you get it?
I mean, yeah. So you it takes a while to actually activate it though at rank 3. So that can sometimes be a downside, but it may not matter too much if you have card draw and you have enough Ember or cost reduction to play all your cards.
It's probably why it's a little bit easier for me for exactly those reasons. I almost still by default take draw. Not always. I'll take capacity and Ember sometimes, but normally take draw, and I cost reduce everything. So like getting to 15, that's you think by turn 3 normally, right? So if you're playing top floor, you need to get to 15. That's 5 per turn. Like that for me has never really been a big problem.
Especially with spell chain, I feel also helps things.
The honestly, the worst thing about Soul Guard is that it's freaking starter card discards, which is really irritating.
I'm starting to really like Forgone Power. I think when you go double draw, it's nice as an option if you don't find good low cost incants or artifacts that help you play out the higher cost incants. It is annoying, but I think a lot of the time it becomes an advantage. Especially if you're just going all in on an incant build, I feel.
And sometimes you do get the discard synergies offering
Crypt builders and whatnot.
Yeah, but for every time that I have foregone powered a foregone power when I had 2 offerings in the deck, or 2 offering cards in my hand.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's similar to Plink that it's a really feels bad starter card. And I almost think that if they were to swap, would they even want to swap? I don't know if Tethys would be bad with Foregone as well.
I feel like there'd be less reason to go Conduit at the ring 1, maybe.
Yeah, unless you got some good damage spells in your starter hand.
Right.
But man, Frozen Lance would, I think, be better with Soulguard because there's so much value in just dumping spells. But yeah, it's hard. But yeah, Titan Channel just.
See, I look at everything in our good tier, and I feel like I would put Titan Channel in the great, just because I think it provides more value than that tier usually provides me. It's rare for me that I would ever have it not be a pretty good piece of my deck, a full Titan Channel.
I also think that one Titan Channel is almost, in my opinion, I think it's mandatory to flex into the other two paths. One rank. The amount of stats you get out of one rank of Titan Channel is crazy in both paths. You just have 50 damage. Congrats.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
I think
true.
I think it's also stupid that it has more stats than Burn Bright. I also don't understand that at all. At rank 1, but
at all ranks, really.
Yeah. At a much easier or much lower requirement. But anyway, yeah,
it also, I think it's worth it. I think it's a significant advantage also that you get around Ember Drain guaranteed top floor.
Yep. And the fact that it doesn't get affected by Temperance sap,
right?
When it comes out, it doesn't get affected by anything, like any of those early negative effects. So it also doesn't get affected by the positive effects, so you don't get all of your artifact benefits, but still.
Yeah, but the thing is that he still only does one hit, so there is that, and you do need units behind him.
Yes.
I suppose even on that front, though, I think it beats Dire Channel significantly because it is technically a hit versus like an action. You can still apply like Furnace Tap to it in an Ember Train build, or even like Umbra Stone, or it also benefits from melee weakness. So if you have like a Rail Beater or a Force Contamination, it can benefit from that, whereas Dire Channel just can't. But those are probably edge cases, admittedly.
It is the single worst card to reform in the game.
Yep.
Yeah, it's not a fun one. Though I will say none of them are particularly great with reform.
No. Soulguard has a bad time.
I guess chill. The Frost Path is okay to reform, but
treat it like a endless Frost Shark at that point, basically.
Yeah, I would make the case. I don't think that it should lose Shards on Death. I don't think that there would be enough advantage if Soulguard kept its Shards. I don't think it would make it overpowered.
Yeah, I think if it kept Shards on Death, then like these two paths would be actually much better.
They'd be good or great.
I'd be fine with that as well if they did the same to Devourer of Death.
Yes.
I feel like it wouldn't be that OP if it just kept its stuff. It's not like... I think it'd be more fun to just have that option, right?
I think if they did that, they'd have to probably tone down the scaling.
Yeah, maybe 5.
But then I think it's... Yeah, exactly. But no, that would be a good change. I would like it that if it kept Shards on Death.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I could see the argument that like on Endless, it just clears the entire waves past a certain point. But I guess my counter argument are there's a lot of Endless units that kind of do that already.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Either scale them all back or let that one have some fun too.
Okay, so we're done with Soulguard.
Primordium?
How do you even judge these paths? Like,
this is a tough,
Yeah, it's...
I mean, Primordium is...
Has anyone ever gone full Stalwart?
You can.
Absolutely, and I think it's the right decision sometimes.
And in Melting Remnant, it's really good.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah, that's right.
Or
Replayability.
awoken. Like
Maybe Wormkin. There's a lot of flat echo
Stats.
transfer and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. These three paths are really. It's you can mix them. You can go 3 levels. Really flexible.
Another one that I think would actually benefit from all 3 paths, if you could, because I think rank 2 and 3 in almost every case, except for Stalwart Snack, but rank 2 and 3 are not great. Like for in any of the paths, the only one that benefits is Stalwart Snack, because like
I would say rank 3 aggressive gets a good spike.
But you get the damage. You also get the damage 2 damage shields for the rank 2 of the.
Yeah, I mean it's okay, but the biggest benefit to the first path of Superfood is the health. Like going from 3 to 10 health is like huge.
Pretty big, yeah.
And then I would rather get Stalwart Snack because I think it's easy to get damage shield on it. There's so many cards that you can just put something onto it. Armor, like you just get armor, 10 armor, and then it's good. So
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I guess the damage shield is okay. I think it was better pre DLC. I think post DLC, the 2 damage shield rarely is the difference maker.
I think if you got to go top, it could make sense just to survive the first few sweep attacks.
I think this champion is probably the hardest to evaluate
path
specific.
On
its own, because like you have stuff like Wretch that would change the value extremely.
Yes.
On which paths are better.
I might argue if I went aggressive, I don't see huge reasons to flex out of it. Because the math just doesn't work out. Like,
yeah,
the math doesn't work out if you have no buffs.
Yes,
right,
exactly.
Right. That's true.
It's aggressive is the best if exactly that scenario. It is the best when you have no stat buffs at all and no other buffs.
Right. Or I guess reasons to gorge, maybe if you have like an umbrella or something.
Like it's really good with the robot. Like double robot with aggressive is fantastic. And that's kind of the cases where I use it, is when I have something that multi-strikes and I just need damage as quickly as possible. I think Superfood certainly has the highest high out of all 3 paths.
It's the most fun too.
I mean, it's the best one to go with the Umber Drain deck.
It's also the worst one to go into Temperament with.
I guess aggressive has the highest floor.
Yes. So it's hard for me to judge. I think all of them are pretty good. I think that Superfood, I would edge out Superfood just because even the floor of Superfood isn't terrible.
Yeah, I'd almost say the floor of Superfood is at least equal to aggressive or better. But that could just be playstyle. If I get stuck, like there's times with aggressive I can't play at top. So now I have to do it mid or bottom, and that can be rough. Like in the kind of in that seed that we saw,
That's
the one
true.
the Never Give Up one, like
I guess I hadn't considered Divinity there. Yeah, aggressive dies to Divinity.
All of them do.
Yeah.
All of them except for specifically Superfood. And even with Superfood, it, I don't know. It's hard.
But if you're building Superfood, you're building towards just him surviving the hit from Divinity, and then you have Divine Shields or Damage Shields in your deck to add to Primordium. Like you would build toward it. So
I think Superfood probably belongs at the fronter end of great, and the other 2 would be in good.
I probably put aggressive in great as well, even with the somewhat potentially bad floor. I feel like on maybe average is the wrong word. I feel like I'll just throw out a number like 75% or more of your runs aggressive is just insanely good and will guarantee a win. So it's hard for me to say it's not great.
I'm fine to put it like at the front of good. I definitely think it's better than Architect, for example. I think it's better than most of the sentient paths. It's just, and I would put Stalwart Snack is situational. It has the potential to be really, really strong, specifically in buff and reform decks. But in every other case, I find it to be worse than having more.
Yeah, it's more of a supporting the other two paths.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So everyone agree with this? So
Yep.
we have superfood, aggressive here, and then Stalwart Snack.
Yep.
Next is
Little Fade.
Little Fade.
Quick.
I think.
Well, this is why I put win by
I don't know. Okay, here's the thing though. I think we might disagree on this a little bit, because I think the problem is, I think the best path is, I don't know. I'm torn. I think all three paths are great, but I don't think any. I mean, I think the ones that can win by himself don't. I don't know. I think an average run.
Each of them can situationally win by themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
But there are times when I would pre DLC Firelight was the best. I don't think it is the best. I think it is often the strongest. But I also think that there are cases where Eternal is better, and there are cases where
ironically, I think Eternal is more consistent now. So it does one thing great. It doesn't kill everything, though. It kills the front. It kills the front unit without any effort at all.
Yeah.
And there's something valuable about a unit that just gets in the way every turn, but still does what it needs to do.
Yeah.
I mean, like even like for the Reap Spine Chief, he's not. You still need like units. Like you still need like other cards. But it's not technically winning. He's not technically winning by himself. But I think it's the same can be said with the Little Fate path. They are very consistent in that they can the Internal Flame and the Firelight, they can win the game for you.
So ironically, the only one of the paths that can truly solo is Icarus, but it is so inconsistent.
Yeah, so I would put Endless and Great.
Yeah,
I put Firelight there as well.
Firelight is the closest to winning the game by itself, because it can do it with any unit. I mean, obviously it's not literally by itself, but it is. There's so many units that it can do it with, except for Ring 1.
I think it will go into this tier, win game by itself.
I don't think it's as consistent as Decayer, because what puts Decayer over Firelight is that Decayer is good rings 1 through 3, and Firelight is so bad ring 1. It is so terrible ring 1, unless you specifically have Burnout Extension.
Or a draft or something.
Or a draft or something, but like...
And you draw it. Like that's the main thing. You have to draw it.
But you reform. You can reform your the train search and and
the problem is the timing. The timing is
five
always
card draw. The 5-card draw is the worst. Is the bad part. Yeah.
And you only have four. You only have four waves, or not even 4 waves. You have 2 waves, and then you have your boss wave, and that's it. So you just don't have time to build up what you need. But yeah, I mean, once Little Fate gets going, once Firelight gets going, it bulldozes everything.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter the unit. Even Train Steward is fine after you get some buffs on them. Or...
Yeah, I think if you're taking Firelight, then sometimes you do have to take some power damage, but
or skip the trial, or
but it usually it's not like it's not game ending, it's not run ending. Like you see, you can still take the trial and take some power damage. So it's so you lose some points, but it's.
I would say with Firelight, it's one of the ones where you actually don't need to take early shards at all.
Right.
Like you just coast until the mid game, and then dump. Once you get to rank 2, everything smooths out, and you're going to be fine.
And it's less about the rank 2; it's more about the removing all the junk from your deck. That is not.
And also, just the battles last longer. You have more time to build up stats.
Yeah.
And then I would put Icarus in good. I don't think it's great. Because if you roll Icarus, it's so demoralizing.
Yeah, it's just like so dependent on your first 3 rings and what like cards you have. Like if you have damage shield card in your starting deck, amazing. If you don't, and there's no invasion trial, awful. Like
or Heaven's Priests. It's like you could, even without the invasion trial, you might get Clergyman or the Hasters ring 2, which can get you there, but often enough there's no Clergyman trial, there's no like a troop like Heaven's Priest where there's like one backliner that hits you and the rest is just tanks and healers. Like you'll get a spike there.
Yeah.
Or 2 spikes or whatever it is, rank 1.
I will say though that into data list it's like almost an auto pick because every single data list is really, really good with Little Fade. But anyway, that's and it has the if you have Awoken, it's there's so much you can synergize.
Awoken has even cycle of life, like adaptive mutation, spikes artifacts,
Crucible, like it's
steel enhancer, like even stuff like that. And then like Umbra's pretty good too with damage shields. Like even Hellhorn is pretty good if you have armor cards to start with.
The nice thing about Hellhorn too is that you can torch it. You can torch it and reform it. Yeah. If you can do that turn 1, and then you can get some more than 1 unit.
Or torch enemies to get the thresholds.
Yes, exactly. So, go ahead.
I think Stygian's the only one where you might not get good synergies. Like Guardian Totem's probably your best there, or Clever Saps.
It's questionable though. Yeah.
But every other clan has a ton for it.
The one thing about Stygian though is you have 2 sweep units as well, like Awoken. So, or you mean specifically for
gathering spikes for Icarus?
Yeah, that's right. Guardian Stone tends to be pretty good. Yeah, but you're right. It's like Stygian is like designed to. It's so weird. It's designed to like avoid your units taking and doing damage.
Right.
Hold all the big spells and sap them, and I don't know.
Right. It's also like pretty hard for me to not take Firelight with Stygian when you got 2 sweepers. Like
yes. Yep. Okay, on to Echo Right.
Yeah, final champion. We have. We have armor first.
It's really, really good in very specific types of decks. In certain decks, it's better than the other 2 paths, but I think it's very inconsistent compared to the other 2 paths.
I think
it has a much higher skill floor than the other 2.
I think it's pretty good, specifically combined with 1 level of repeater.
I actually don't like it with repeater. I think it's better without. I think it's better with eggs than it is with repeater. But the main reason why is I think it's the single best user of Wormkin etchings and broken memories. the Broken Memories combo.
Yeah.
Yeah, but sometimes you don't get those cards.
Yeah. No, you're right. That's why I say like the main reason I don't love it with one rank of the return is because I don't think it does enough at rank 2 once per turn. But I mean, I guess it's not terrible. What is it? It's at rank 2. It does 8. Is that right, or is it 10?
8.
I think it's
8. Yeah, it's so this, I would say, if you don't get Broken Memories or etchings or Rancor Repeater, you can make a card like Ambient Charge or Total Recall do some serious work with this path. It's just not something that feels good because it's like you're burning out your deck, but technically it gets you, you'll never die at that point. So it's like, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it also pisses me off that it doesn't work with wing clippings.
Right.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
wing clippings is not something I take in Wormkin much because of how anti-synergistic it is with like every etch trigger.
Yeah.
But it's similar to Aggressive Edible to me. It's one that's boring to me, kind of, but it's technically very good. I'd be tempted to put it in Great, but if I can find any reason to do Repeater or Martial Lord, I will.
I would put it at the back end of good. I don't think it's as good as some of the things that are in there. I don't think it's as good as Primordium. I don't think it's as good as the Sentient. I don't think it's as good as Architect. But I think it's okay, and it has some highs. Like, it definitely has some highs. If you can get a Wormkin Etchings build rolling, like, it's really, really strong. You're looking at, like, 60 armor per turn plus, which is just nuts, but...
Yeah, the thing with this is that it gives you armor on all your units, so you don't really need to worry about sustain ever if you have this. So just and then the edge. I think consume cards are more common than people think, and
Yeah, I mean, I personally, for consistency, would put it closer to Great, but it's consensus.
I think I would put it like up, like towards the top here of good. Yeah.
Then we have
or the consume return repeater.
Oh, really? This is my favorite path, but
that's because you're boring.
Not boring.
It's my favorite as well. I suppose before we get to Martial Lord, we should note that there is a specific situation that I've had happen a lot where you're not offered Martial Lord and you have no consumes, and that's not a fun ring one for either Shellsmith or Repeater.
No, it's not. Repeater is really good. The only problem I have with Repeater is, how do I say it? Like,
it's not Martial Lord. Is that
no? The only problem I have with Repeater is if you don't get the right consume cards, the ones you get back are like there's some really crappy consume cards that you can get, and so then you're either having to remove them from your deck and hoping for something better. Like if you get like Echo Snare, and that's your consume card you're bringing back, it just doesn't feel very good. You know what I mean? Like it requires you to get a good consume card to be good.
See, I would say I think even a bad consume can be good. Like I've had whatever you call it, the sap, or not sap, but the serum, rage serum back before, which I don't really think much of that card, but it was infused, so at the very least it's a free etch trigger to the whole floor. It's a free echo inspire to the whole floor, and a free rage because it doesn't cost a draw, I think is the big thing there. I think it'll always, for me, it's always at least good if I'm returning a bad consume. There are some cases though, like you kind of have to lean into it sometimes. Like Soul Siphon could be a really bad return, or it could be a game-winning return, right? Like if you have endless eggs, it's game-winning. But if it's the only consumable you have, it's like, well, it's not really going to do anything for repeater, really, past a certain point, right?
Certainly, Shelter with repeater is just insane.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you start getting into like crazy stuff. Broken Memories combos that you can get. Like there's some stuff you can do with repeater that's like really crazy. But and then obviously you get into like the real nuts stuff, which is like Furnace Taps and
Last Stand.
Yeah.
It's one of the pieces of the infinite combo, but
Awoken Rail Spike combos with it are really good too.
But normally you would just
Shroud
take the one consume, either rank 1. You wouldn't really go for rank 2 since it is the same, it's just a stat boost, but you either go rank 1 or rank 3.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I don't mind it as a flex to Shellsmith, if I know it doesn't look like I'm going for something that can really benefit from A, 2 cards returned, but B, even just if I kind of like what you're talking about, Nate, if you have a low value consume that you just don't even care to, you almost just have a bunch of like Echo Snares and other low value ones. I think it's good to flex into Shellsmith there, because then on the
no matter what,
note
you're
of
getting
Shelter, right?
Yeah.
You're just getting yourself 8 armor a turn.
Yeah, and also is if you don't get those cards that return consume cards to your hand, you can just have one rank of the repeater, and then you have at least one consume cards returned to your hand every single turn. So it's not bad.
I think it's better than Shellsmith. So I would put it like I think they're pretty close, but I think it's better.
I think we can put it at the end here. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
I'd agree with that.
And
Marsh Lord.
Finally,
And
Marsh Lord.
I'm gonna sit out. What? No.
Oh, we need you on this one, Narninian.
No.
So it's definitely not win by itself, because even as good as Bogworm is, he's not going to kill everything. Bogwormling. I'm so biased because apart from a certain tournament round, I have not lost with Marsh Lord. I don't lose with this champion upgrade path.
I need to hang on, I have an audio clip I need to play. Right, 1 second.
I actually never lost with the Marsh Lord ever since that tournament, yeah.
It's cursed for tournaments. We know that.
It is a tournament curse.
Nobody could get through the one seed.
But it's hard for me because in general, I think eggs are really strong. Yeah. They're really, really, really strong. And the more that I played with them, the more that I realized, like, they're apart from Bog Chrysalis, or not Bog Chrysalis, the what is it called?
Bog Deep Cocoon.
Yeah, I think that one's trash. But the other two are so good at just packing value into a single thing. Oh, by the way, the Cocoon is fantastic as an essence. It's a great essence. Yeah. Terrible unit. But the fact that the eggs are so good anyway, and it's so easy to hatch them, and then you get all the edge triggers on top. Like, for me, it's really, really easy, in my opinion, to set up an egg build that just wins. You don't need that many cards. You don't need that many consume cards, and it's still very, very strong.
Yeah. It's also the only one that isn't reliant. It's the default for me if I didn't start with any consume cards, if it's offered, because it's the only one that's going to do anything for me, ring 1 to possibly ring 2.
And eggs are just
yeah.
The other thing that's nice about eggs is that they are fantastic at, like, the Cocoon is really good at blocking up until it hatches, and then it hatches and it heals. Like, I don't know. There's a lot that I really like about how that build works in general. And it also is the only Echo Right that, well, I guess Steelsmith can as well, but like Repeater dies very easily. The Echo Right can die and it doesn't affect whether your build's going to succeed or not. So I don't know. There's a lot of things I really like about it. But I'm super biased because I seem to do really well with it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think it's as reliable across the board as Repeater, but I do like it a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it has a decent floor. The floor is that you just don't find eggs, I feel, which happens. But even then, it's not bad, right?
Like you get a keeper, and it's also very good. You
Right.
have a guaranteed 3 units on a floor with a keeper. I don't know. It's hard to not like that. So
Right.
And the fact that you can fit 3 pips, it's hard because if you have 2 units that are going to make up 2 of those pips, it's kind of scary. You might not draw them, but if you have a 3 pip unit, you can fit a 3 pip unit, or you can add a pip to get 2 pip units.
Yeah.
And then you just get an extra 2 units on top, which is really strong. But I also, it can be, I'm sure, like and as it was in the run that we did. What's funny is that run absolutely was winnable. This is what I did. I repeated the run and showed that it was very clearly winnable if you don't greed so hard. But yeah, it's I think it's very, very strong. And if I compare it, so you're comparing it against within the Echo Right, like arc there. But if you compare it to just other types of champions, it's 2 units at rank 3. It's 2 units that together have like 150 and 135 stats with upside if you have consume cards.
Right. Yeah, I remember in that run, the run you're talking about, I had some of the worst play, but also some of the best play I've ever had in that. Like on the first few rings, I did so bad. I went Marsh Lord and didn't pick eggs, or didn't get eggs. But even with just the Bogfly cocoon that comes with the rank 3 Marsh Lord, it got me to Divinity. It couldn't get me through Divinity, but it's something to be said that without any egg synergy, it still did good enough, right, to get to that point. And I didn't have much beyond that anyway.
Yeah. If I hadn't misclicked, I also would have been just fine.
Right. The Malika events.
Yes. Oh my god. Trauma. Still feel it. I think the list looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh wait, so where do we put eggs? I would put eggs. I think it's better than personally. I think it's better than Steelsmith. I think it's not as reliable as Repeater.
Yeah, I think
I feel like it's great.
Are we putting great?
I would put it on great personally.
Yeah.
But I would put
after Repeater.
After Repeater.
Yeah.
I would I would agree. I mean I've had really good experience with X too. It's that as long as you get at least 1 egg, you're set.
Right.
Also worth to note that Bog Slime is good with all 3 paths.
Oh yeah, that's just an amazing artifact. I mean, honestly, the existence of Bog Slime and Karuska make Inspire even just such a powerful mechanic.
Obviously, you'll have the runs where you just don't really use it that much,
right?
But I feel like those are pretty rare. Even if all you're using it for is to play out your buff cards and your days and your. It's funny. Melee weakness. I think it's still pretty good. I've actually been not taking it nearly as often recently.
Yeah, I don't like it that much.
I think it's good with Rail Beater. I don't think it's quite as good with the spell. But anyway.
It's also, for what it's worth, Marsh Lord is the best Echo Right path according to the meta-analysis that I did. of like 10 or so Covenant,
oh, you
25
mean-
players.
Oh, interesting.
So I've got to go.
Yeah, me too.
Really appreciate the discussion. This was really fun.
So next week,
That was
Blood in the
fun,
Clock
yeah.
Tower.
Next
was
week,
that?
let's do.
Oh,
next
yeah.
week, let's do some fun stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
And
Sounds good.
yeah, I'm gonna head out, and then Gabriot, we just need to combine our two recordings.
Yep, definitely. I will send you what I have.
I can splice them, and then I can send back if you guys want to post onto your individual channels.
Sure.
And anyway, thanks guys. Talk to you guys later.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. So yeah, this is the tier list, and I think it's pretty good. I would disagree with some of the this, but like the Titan channel, I would probably have that good, but I think they have more experience than me at the game, so yeah. And for the X, I would actually move this up more, but I think on an average level, X, if you're not, there are some very low lows for X, so X is there. And the trash tier, I made the trash tier here, but it's not really used because like generally every single champion does their job. Does some job, even though some are better than others. But the trash, like this, I mean, I would argue to put him, the Slayer, here at the end of the bat, but because the Slayer still does something. Overall, this is the tier list. It's, like, in my opinion, pretty objective, pretty good. And yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this four-person collab, and some of the bigger names in Monster Train, Nathaniel, Narninian, and Gabriot. Thank you guys so much for watching. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed the video, and I will hope to see you all in my next video. Peace.